Hello and welcome to NTA International News at this hour. I am Dennis Adigunloye. Let's take the headlines first. Counting of ballots in progress as voting ends in presidential election in Guinea-Bissau.
We are voting to turn a new page in Guinea, and I hope after the election, the politicians will allow the country to stabilize.
Executive Order 009 will boost health and environmental friendliness in Nigeria, says Nasarawa State Governor. National Emergency Management Agency cushions victims of Yobe Potash Market fire disaster. Plus, Nigerian Army upscales exercise Crocodile Smile 4 in Takwa Bay. And now the news in full details. The Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, is optimistic that the entire stretch of the Lagos-Ibadan rail line will be completed before the end of April 2020. The minister, while on another round of inspection of the 157-kilometer rail project, also directed the contractor to integrate the narrow and standard rail gauge to save costs and ensure timely completion of the projects. Michael Olaleye reports.
For every mile covered, the changes are visible, depicting the remarkable progress of work done at the Lagos corridor of the rail project. Even with this pace, the minister is still demanding for more, urging the contractor to speed up actions to meet contractual obligations. At most of the train stations along the axis, work is still at basic stage, a development the minister attributed to the late arrival of construction materials.
The other things they are still expecting from China, the pipes, the cables, all sorts of things they expect from China. They've started arriving. If they arrive, they say give us 1 to 2 months, we should be able to complete those stations.
Although the pace of work is still within the stipulated time, but dealing with the challenges of relocating cables and sewage at the Lagos corridor is demanding, especially with the emerging threat of theft and vandalism.
Latest April, we'll be out of this place. We are no longer giving ourselves the time. The contractor is the person giving us the time. Don't forget there are 2 contracts here. Most people are forgetting there are 2 contracts. The first contract is Ebute Meta to Ibadan. That's the first contract. Then I came up with the idea that, listen, you don't have railways that don't end up in the seaport. So that's the extension that's the big challenge now.
The Nigerian Railway Corporation is keeping hope alive that the interstate operation between Ijoko in Ogun State and Ebute Meta in Lagos, earlier suspended due to the replacement of rail tracks, will soon be reactivated.
For the narrow gauge, they have given date of 15th of December when we will restore that. And the inspection is part of putting pressure on the contractor to deliver.
The pressure put into the timely completion of this project is understandable. This is because, aside the hope that it will reduce the stress associated with traveling on roads, the comfort and luxury provided by this facility will be forced to none. In Lagos, Michael Olaleye, NTA News.
The National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has deployed relief materials for onward distribution to victims of the fire disaster in Yobe Potash Market to cushion the effects of the disaster. Director General of the agency, Mustafa Mehaja, who led NEMA's delegation to the scene of the incident, expressed shock over the level of devastation. Ilyasu Ali Yakubu reports.
This is the 3rd time the people of Zangwan Kamwa Potash Market in Gashua town of Bade local government area of Yobe State are facing fire disaster in 2019. More than 3 million naira worth of potash are said to have been destroyed, and 103 shop owners were affected in the latest disaster. Director General of NEMA Mustafa Mehaja said The immediate deployment of building materials is to immediately ensure the reconstruction of the market before other assistance to give them a sense of belonging. He said NEMA is working on modalities on proactiveness rather than reactive.
This is market. People have lost their businesses. So what we need to do to uplift their businesses will come later. Steps are being taken at all times, and a reduction in the consequences of disaster or even occurrence of disaster is assured.
The victims commended both NEMA and the state government for the quick response and appeal for more assistance to get back on their feet.
We appreciate the government for this gesture.
We thank God for this assistance.
At the end of the inspection by both NEMA and SEMA delegations, Mustafa Mehadja constituted a committee to recommend a lasting solution to the perennial fire disaster in the area. Ilyasu Ali Yakubu, NTA News.
The European Union and Oxfam are funding a social investment project worth 71 million euros in northern Nigeria. The project targets improvements in food security and resilience of vulnerable persons and will be implemented in 70 communities of Kebbi and Adamawa states. Musa Baba Aliyu visited some benefiting communities of the EU project to ascertain the level of impact.
This farming community is in Dankowasagu local government area of Kebbi State, located 200 kilometers from Birnin Kebbi, the state capital. It is a quiet evening, providing conducive atmosphere for the children and adults to engage on what they know how to do best. While the children are at the playing ground, the parents are in the farm harvesting farm produce. This group of farmers are beneficiaries of EU Oxfam Agriculture Extension Program. They harvest more than 10 bags of 70 kilograms of maize against the 4 to 5 bags they get annually.
They are not doing spacing, and they don't maybe apply fertilizer 2 times in a plot.
Hali Aliyu is a sorghum farmer in Wasagu. He was supported with fertilizer and extension service to expand his farm.
For the last 3 years, I'm harvesting this for not up north to 12 sacks or 10. But now, for last year, I harvest more than 20.
The women in Jega, Birnin Kebbi and Wasagu were grouped into associations, which they were trained in financial literacy, nutritional program and marketing. 70-year-old Saida Todemu is a member of one of the associations in Wasagu. A widow with no child or grandchild says the EU project has been a great helping hand. I saved 13,000 naira last year, and this year I'm hoping to start rearing goats, she says. Also incorporated in the project, planting to protect farming areas against desert encroachment.
We planted over 600 trees in Government Girls Secondary School, Wasagu, in order to fight against this climate change.
5,000 trees have been planted in 3 local government areas of Kebbi State. Musa Baba Aliyu, NTA News.
Now, the governor of Nasarawa State, Abdullahi Sule, has commended President Muhammadu Buhari on the signing of Executive Order 009 to end open defecation by 2025. The governor made the commendation at a media briefing on environmental sanitation in Abuja. Obiageli Ugwoke completes the story.
About 46 million Nigerians are said to practice open defecation, making the country the second in the world with such unhealthy practice. The survey also shows that only 11 out of the 774 local government areas in Nigeria are free from the practice of open defecation. Commending the federal government's environmental sanitation programs and the recently signed Executive Order 009, the governor of Nasarawa State, Abdullahi Sule, says the order signed by President Buhari will reduce the menace to a certain limit. He said collective effort is required by states and agencies, while ministries across board should lend their maximum support to ensure compliance.
Open defecation will go to a large extent in helping us with clean environment, but it will not solve all the problems, so we have to do more. That's why I said in Nasarawa State we reintroduced, the monthly sanitation campaign, and then we established the waste management agency, and then of course we are participating in ensuring that we also help in reducing the land degradation and erosion that we have all over the state.
Describing this trend as worrisome, the governor explained that Nasarawa State is already embarking on environmental sanitation programs that will positively affect the lives of the people.
First is the fact that if you go now on the roads, especially in Karu local government, you will see some level of improvement on the cleaning of the waste, along the roads, that you will see that. And then we also, as I mentioned, just commissioned, a waste management factory, project that was built by the federal government. That gave us additional disposal trucks, waste disposal trucks that we have.
Nasarawa State is the first state to establish an anti-opium defecation program and one of the states to adopt the WASH project. Obiageli Ugoke, NTA News.
Talking security now, the Nigerian Army has upscaled the ongoing exercise Crocodile Smile 4 in Takwa Bay in Lagos State. Defense correspondent Ismail Musa accompanied the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, on operational tour of the deployment.
As part of the operational visit, the Chief of Army Staff went round Takwa Bay, a former Ford operation base developed to a super camp to enhance rapid response to threats within the island. After inspecting platforms and deployment at the super camp for Takwa Bay General Area of Responsibility, the Army Chief charged troops to adhere strictly to the rules of engagement and be proactive in tackling threats.
We must continue to train to support the civil authority when the situation arises. We train hard now, and when the time requires us to go for the real operation, it's going to be very easy.
Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai also appraised a medical outreach in Takwa Bay, a civil-military relations component of Exercise Crocodile Smile.
With the renewed zeal of our officers and men, not only in the Northeast, but across the country. And this exercise, Crocodile Smile, as well as I Am Apatuma, as well as Atulogo Udo, they have been operated along this concept of the super camp. And we're happy that the results that are coming out are quite encouraging, and we'll continue to develop on this concept.
The duties of a defense correspondent could be exciting, adventurous, but risky. From Takwa Bay in Lagos State, Ismail Musa, NTA News.
All right, thanks you, Ismail, for that report. In other news, the attention of the Federal Road Safety Corps has been drawn to a trending video of an unfortunate road traffic crash that occurred recently in Ibadan that claimed the lives of a staff of the Federal Road Safety Corps Oluyole Unit Command in Ibadan, Oyo State, and one other person. A statement by the Corps Public Education Officer, Bisi Kazim, indicates that information gathered at the scene of the crash from eyewitnesses and the police revealed that, contrary to some insinuations in the video, the Corps patrol vehicle was not in motion when the incident occurred. The seriously injured victim was rushed to the hospital for medical attention while the deceased were taken to the morgue. It is also important to intimate the public that the alleged reckless driver has been taken to court and charged accordingly. The public should disregard insinuations that the personnel were in pursuit of any traffic offender. The Corps, however, pleads that the motoring public should be more cautious while on the highways and drive defensively. You're watching the news on NTA International, reaching you from Abuja. Stay tuned for as counting of ballots has commenced after voting ended in the presidential election in Guinea-Bissau. Musbao Damahab reports that the ECOWAS Election Observation Mission says it is satisfied with voter turnout and the conduct so far.
73-year-old Bremaso has been observing as Guinea-Bissau struggles through her political evolution. He's certainly not happy with the political instability. Brema joins other Guinean electorate as they hope this presidential election would take their country out of the woods of political crisis.
We are voting to turn a new page in Guinea, and I hope after the election, the politicians will allow the country to stabilize.
The process commenced on schedule with polling officials on ground at centers as early as 6 a.m. Polling officials and party agents were the first to cast their ballots before the electorate on the queue. Pre-election day voting is allowed here too, as security agents sent in their vote. In the city and in the suburbs, it was a peaceful conduct, even without heavy presence of security personnel. This was confirmed as the ECOWAS mission compared notes with American Embassy and Civil Society Organization Situation Room.
Étape importante dans la vie institutionnelle.
This is a very important step for a country that desires socio-political stability and development. And ECOWAS is monitoring closely to ensure that the process can take place in a peaceful atmosphere.
La communauté internationale, au premier rang de laquelle la CEDEAO.
11 candidates, including 4 former prime ministers, are contesting the seat, with incumbent President Jose Mario Vaz who wants a return. And a candidate must poll at least 50% plus 1 vote to emerge winner. Otherwise, the 2 leading candidates will go for another round of election already slated for December 29. In Bissau, Musbau and Wahab, NTA News.
From Guinea-Bissau to Japan, where Pope Francis in Japan delivers a robust anti-nuclear message of peace in the only country to have suffered an atomic bomb attack. The Pope is fulfilling a long-cherished ambition to preach in Japan, where years ago he hoped to be a missionary. His 4-day trip includes a visit to Nagasaki and Hiroshima, 2 cities associated with the nuclear bombs dropped on them at the end of World War II, killing at least 74,000 people and 140,000 people. Before he left the Vatican, Pope Francis rallied against the immoral use of nuclear weapons and prayed against their destructive power, saying they will never be unleashed again in human history. While in Thailand, he preached religious tolerance and peace. He will do the same in Japan, a country with only about 440,000 Catholics out of a population of 126 million. And back home, President Muhammadu Buhari expresses solidarity with the governments and people of Kenya and the Democratic Republic of Congo over deadly flood disasters and mudslides that wreaked havoc in some parts of the 2 countries. A statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, says President Buhari expresses in separate messages to the leaders of Kenya and the DRC sadness over their loss of lives and the economic and social disruptions caused by the disasters. It adds that emergency management response is one of Africa's biggest challenges of development, which leaders should find a common strategy to minimize human and economic impacts of the catastrophes. The president told the leaders that the hearts and prayers of all Nigerians are with those affected by the natural disaster. And for the world in 6 days segments, let's join Obiageli Ogwoke.
Hello and thank you for joining us. Election officials in Ethiopia's ethnic Sidama region counted votes on Thursday from a referendum that many experts will approve the creation of a new federal state. The vote completed Wednesday is seen as a critical test in a nation already struggling with community tensions. Analysts say it could inspire other groups to push for autonomy and redraw boundaries in Ethiopia, Africa's second most populous country with more than 100 million people. If approved, the new states would be largely based on ethnic divisions. The voting process ended peacefully with no security incidents reported. In the meantime, the Gambia is gearing up for a new constitution as part of referendum efforts following years of authoritarian rule by exiled leader Yahya Jammeh. The Constitutional Review Commission of the Gambia has released a draft copy of the documents. CRC Gambia chairperson Justice Cheno, who announced the release of the documents, emphasized that it had from onset clarified the Gambia as a multi-party democratic state founded on the rule of law. Given its immediate past presidential history of a high-handed executive president, a lot of people have been looking at areas surrounding human rights and how to combat corruption. In another development, France has restored to Senegal a sword that belongs to a 19th century Islamic scholar and ruler. It is part of a commitment to return to its former West African colonies key items of their cultural heritage. The artifact originally belonged to the West African leader Omar Sedel Tall, who led an anti-colonial struggle against the French. French Prime Minister Edouard Philippe handed the swords to Senegal's President Macky Sall in a ceremony in Dakar. Mr. Philippe said it was the first step in a project aimed at returning more Senegalese artifacts currently in French museums, which hold at least 90,000 artifacts from sub-Saharan Africa. Away from that, U.S. officials imposed an entry ban on former Kenyan Attorney General Amos Wako, citing his alleged involvement in what the State Department called significant corruption. At news conference Wednesday, Wako denied the allegations and denounced the ban, which prevents him, his wife and son from traveling to the U.S. U.S. Secretary of State Michael Pompeo announced the travel ban on Wako and his family in a statement released Monday. The U.S. has criticized Wako several times over the years for failure to halt corruption during his 20 years tenure as Attorney General from 1991 to 2011. At a conference Wednesday in Nairobi, Wako, now a member of Kenya's Senate, criticized the U.S. allegations as vague and unjustified. And lastly, at least 7 workers were killed and another 35 wounded in an airstrike that hit a biscuit factory Monday in a southern suburb of the Libyan capital, Tripoli. Emergency services say those killed included 2 Libyans and 5 foreigners from Bangladesh and sub-Saharan African countries. Tripoli has been under attack since early April from forces loyal to East Libyan-based commander Khalifa Haftar. And that's it from here. Do stay tuned for the rest of the news. I am Obiageli Ugoke.
Thank you, Obiageli. Eliud Kipchoge and Delilah Mohammed emerged Sportsman and Sportswoman of the Year by World Athletics. And Deontay Wilder knocks out Luis Ortiz for the 2nd time to retain his WBC title for the 10th time.